Hi, I'm Jason Matthews, owner of Matthews Painting Company in Warsaw, Indiana. We continue our tutorial videos that we show each new employee that comes into our company to train them and teach them how to be professional painters. This will be video 1 of 3 on how we go about painting a raised panel door. On this video, we'll just be discussing the order. That's what all the numbers up here are for, so this will be a little bit confusing to get on this one video. So you'll probably want to zoom up and watch this a few different times. When we come into painting a door here at Matthews Painting, when I refer to raised panels, we're just talking about these panels here that are raised up a little bit. The very first thing that we paint on this door, we will do it by brush or a possible roller. And that would be if we're painting this edge here and this edge here, as we would do our edge. And we have numbered that number 1. You may or may not see that on the video. The reason we do that edge is you usually lip over here a little bit, and we would not want to be lipping over onto a finished door. So when we do this edge, we just get that done, and then we either wipe this off with our finger or a rag just to kind of take the ridge off. After we've actually done the edge of our door, we then come in with our brush and we start working the recessed areas of the raised panel. So we see number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And so as we're painting these here, these recessed areas, we're very careful on these little angles here, these 45-degree angles. We do not like our brush marks to go past those into the other recessed area. We do like to stop them perfectly right at those angles. Also, we do like to come right to the very edge and up to the edge here, a little bit onto there, so that when we come back and roll later, which you'll see, that there's not going to be little slivers that we're trying to actually hit with our roller. Now, with that being said, you will have to wipe this edge with a rag or again your finger, as well as this edge here on each of these panels as you're doing number 2 through 7, so that you don't see that ridge through the paint after you've rolled. So once we have our recessed areas, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 brushed in, these edges cleaned off in the sense of just no ridge. You don't have to have all the paint off, so it'll actually probably look smeared much like this here. That is okay because there's no ridge there. So after we've gotten to number 7 here, we actually will then go to number 8, and it's this larger panel here. Now this is where some folks would start top to bottom and then work down. There's a reason we like to start our rolling here. So we've brushed here, we've brushed our recessed areas. We're now getting into rolling. We use a 3/16" woven cover up to a 1/4 inch, nothing more than that. And when we start in here, the reason I start here and not a small one is it's really hard to know how much paint you have on your first dip. And the reason I have this centered here is that I like to start out center rolling. Typically you have too much paint on your roller when you're starting off, especially as a beginner. So by starting in the middle here, that allows you to actually come over here to 9 if you have to. So the reason we have these 8 and 9 is that so you can get some of the paint off of your roller cover rather than going to so much paint here and then you're stuck because it's such a small area. And so you'll be going in the middle of number 8, the middle of the top of this raised panel, and 9, and then you'll start working it towards the edges here, okay? And that's why the arrows are coming out. So once you've actually emptied the roller center here and worked towards your edges, you can get that on 8 and 9. Typically you have enough paint on your roller to actually come in and do 10 and 11 now with virtually an empty roller cover. We are using also a 4-inch frame, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that, but we're using a 4-inch long roller cover. Also, we like to use cabinet coat by Instalex. That tends to lay down the nicest, but we do not like to go real heavy. The thinner the coats actually almost lays down to where you do not see any brush marks or roller texture. Then we can go ahead and work down to finish 12 and number 13. Now number 14 down here has a question mark. If there's no strip down there, or you can actually roll all the way down to the edge down here, you do not have to cut in or brush the bottom of this door. But if there is a gasket down there, I go ahead and I brush this in next because that's going to be drying and it's down by your feet and it's not going to be really seen too much by the naked eye. So once that's done, I come up here. If there's a door jamb or something up here where I wouldn't be able to roll into it, I do a little bit of brushing in this corner. Sometimes that's not the case. That's why it has a question mark there. And now I'm going to get into rolling number 16. That would be the top of my door and working down. Okay? Now these little swale marks here with the arrow means I like to bring this first 16, this first dip down into this area. The reason being is when I go into my next dip of paint in my roller cover and I start with 17 here, I'm not going to have to come over into a nicely finished area that I've already looked at and have it looking the way I want it to. So I'm only going to have to bring it right up into this area here as I'm working down. So that's number 17. We kind of follow suit with number 18 as well. So in 17, we're also coming into this area a little bit before we actually start rolling number 18, so that I do not have to take this out into an area that I kind of put a final finesse on and made really nice. This is the time I like to cut in or brush around my doorknob, is in between 17 and 18. Because if that starts to semi-dry or tack up, and I did that early on, that's a very visible area that everyone looks at. And so I like to brush that in and then roll around that. If there's not a knob there, you don't have to worry about that. Sometimes we take the knobs off. But to me, it gives the nicest look is to brush that in between 17 and 18. And then, of course, on this 18, bringing it down, we come in those swell marks again into this edge a little bit. And then we finish off with number 19. So that's the basic order we like to paint raised panel doors. For more information, you can contact us on our website at matthewspainting.com.